Hello, welcome to another video. My name is Rowan. Today we're going to be talking about the series that I want to get to in 2021. Yes, she's wearing the same t-shirt. Yes, she's wearing the same makeup. That is because we're doing a batch film. Let's not judge, let's just continue. All of you know that I'm a massive fantasy reader, and everyone else gets to do videos like, oh, the top fantasy series I want to get to this year, or the top contemporaries I want to get to this year. I do not get that luxury because I only read fantasy, which is, you could argue, my own fault, but we won't talk about that. Anyway, today we're going to talk about 8 series, which is a lot of series, but I could not pick between them because they're all so good and I really want to catch up on some of them, and some of them I've been on my TBR for many years, so let's get right into it. So the first series is the Witchland series by Susan Dennard. And the Witchlands is a YA fantasy set in a world where people have elemental powers. The first book, called Truth Witch, follows Isolde and Safi. And one of them's a Truth Witch, which means she can tell when people are telling the truth. Is quite self-explanatory, to be fair. And one of them is a thread witch, and a thread witch can see threads like around people and like between people. And these threads, like, she sees them change colour according to their mood. And I think she can also like influence people's moods by like touching the threads. Anyway, a truth witch is super duper rare, so they end up having to go on the run because a blood witch gets a hold of them, like a sniff on them. And a blood witch is basically like that vampire from Twilight called James who like tracks Bella because he's got her scent. He's a tracker. The blood witch is a tracker. Let's stop there. I have already read the first book, but I have not read the second and third, which have come out, and the fourth one is out this year called Witch Shadow, which I think, I'm not sure if it's like a trilogy in a trilogy or if it's like a full arc. I'm not sure. I will find out. But I need to reread the first one to continue the others because I cannot for the life of me remember what the hell happened in that book. I think I read it about 2 years ago now. On Goodreads I gave it 3 stars, but I feel like I remember it being better than it was. So I usually don't change ratings when I reread something, but because I've basically forgotten everything that's happened, it may bump up the rating using Corpile this year. This has got really good sisterly best friend girl on girl love. I say girl on girl, they're just mates. I was really disappointed actually. I think that might have been why I rated it a little bit low, because I thought that they were gonna get together, but they genuinely are just really good friends. And there's also the enemies to lovers trope in this book as well. Series number 2 is An Ember in the Ashes by Saga here. So this is a YA fantasy again. We're going to be saying that a lot probably. And it's set in an ancient Rome inspired world following Elias and Laia. And they are on opposite sides of, I would say, a war, but it's mainly just an oppressive empire and peasants in the street. Laia's brother gets arrested and then she gets involved with the rebels, and she gets to spy from inside the military academy, which is where Elias is. And Elias is all angsty and he doesn't want to do that, and you know, is very lots of angst, lots of enemies to lovers, everyone's hot, that kind of series. And I read the first one only a month or so ago and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars, something like that, and I'm really excited to carry on. I've had it on my TBR for so many years, and the most recent, the finale actually came out in January, called The Sky Beyond the Storm, so now it seems the perfect time to get to it. Series number 3 is the Old Kingdom series by Garth Nix. The first being Sabriel, and then Lyriel and Abhorsen, all 3 of which I have read before, but a good few years ago now. I hesitate to say a decade, but it may have been a decade since I last read these books. And Sabriel is my favourite book of all time, and I'm frightened to read it again in case it was just, you know, the folly of youth. But it is really good. I do really like Sabriel. But Garth Nix decided to carry on the series and write more in that world, and I want to reread the original trilogy before continuing on with whatever else he's written in the universe. So Sabriel is a YA fantasy, who'd have thought? And it's basically, she's a necromancer, but also like an opposite of a necromancer. So she banishes the dead, but I think she can also raise the dead. I think she can do both. But her dad is the Abhorsen, and he's in charge of banishing the dead from, I think it's Ancelstier is the name of the place. of the country or whatever, the fantasy world. And in the fantasy world, like if you picture like a map of like Great Britain, it's almost like there's a wall like really, really near the bottom, sort of like where like Cornwall and all that is. And the bottom bit is like all civilized and colonized and all that. And everything above the wall is like all wild and magic and like really fucking dangerous. And then there's like a few cities at the top that are okay as well. The Abhorsen banishes the dead and tries to keep the area in check basically, but he goes missing and Sabriel has to go find him when she's in the academy down south, and she just basically has to go find him and go on a little quest. And in this series there is a sassy talking cat, and from what I remember there is no romance. I don't think she's asexual. I think she thinks about a man at some point. So I don't think she's asexual, unfortunately, but it was written in like the 90s, so even if she was, it wouldn't be confirmed at the time. But I'm sure Garth Nix would have confirmed it by now if she was. Series number 4 is the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. Now, I don't know if this is continuing past book 3. I don't know if it's a trilogy or if it's going further, but as it's middle grade, I would have thought it would go further. Our main character, Morrigan Crow, is destined to die on her 11th birthday, and she is seen as cursed by her family and the whole village that she lives in. Everything that goes wrong in this village and everything that goes wrong in her family, like, they blame her because she's some kind of cursed child or something. So on the night of her 11th birthday, a Willy Wonka type character turns up and whisks her away and basically saves her from dying. And he takes her to Nevermore, which is a whimsical place where there's lots of magic, there's a giant talking cat. She like stays in this hotel and there's all sorts of kooky characters going on, and she has to do some trials to get into this school that's there. And I think she has to get into the school in order to stay in Nevermore and obviously be safe from whatever curse, like whatever was going to happen to her when she turned 11. I have read the first book already, but it was a while ago, so it's going to be another reread for me. But the third book came out recently called Hollowpox, so I'm excited to read the other two and see what happens to Morrigan. Number 5 is one that a lot of my friends, and including Katie from Brightness Katie Reads, is going to be very happy about. But I want to read the Cosmia. And I know a lot of people break it down, like I want to read the Mistborn Trilogy 1, I want to read the whole of the Cosmia this year. I have read the first Mistborn book. I am about 150 pages into the second one. I'm then going to move on to Era 2 of Mistborn, and then I'm going to read Warbreaker, and then I'm going to read the Stormlight Archive. All I think I can say on that is to please wish me luck. I'm hoping, there's four books in the Stormlight Archive, and if I add on Warbreaker and the last 2 Mistborn books, that's only, please ignore my nails. I had them done before Christmas, but obviously they've grown and I've had to file them down. Please ignore my nails. 7 books. Because they're so chunky, these ones, the Mistborn Era 2 ones are not chunky at all. These 7 are very chunky. If I can read those 7 this year, one every month or every couple of months, I think that's doable. I think that's very doable. I'm going to finish Well of Ascension in January, and that only leaves 6 left. So 1 every 2 months-ish. I think, I think that's fine. If you don't know what the Cosmia is, I mean, same. I don't fucking know what the Cosmia is. So if you don't know, it's Brandon Sanderson. It's talked about all the time. I'm probably not the best person to tell you what it's about. Mistborn itself, you can start with that. I know that. The Mistborn trilogy you can start with, which is the Final Empire, the Well of Ascension, and the Hero of Ages. If you want to get into Sanderson and want to get into the Stormlight Archive and everything, blah, 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 the whole Cosmia, I would suggest you go to Katie's video on the reading order. I will link that below. Because I am merely a conduit for Brandon Sanderson to funnel magic into my brain. I don't know anything about it. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the ride. Number 6 is the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb. Now, I don't really know anything about this trilogy. All I've seen Jade from JD Ray Reads reading it. I've seen, and everyone else, I think Ashley from Frolic Through Fiction, I think there's a group of them that were doing Elderling along. All I know about it is that it's a guy called Fitz. He's a bastard of the royal family. He gets cast out, but then he gets brought back in to be trained as a royal assassin. Other than, yeah, he has a gift with animals. This is literally all I've looked up because I don't like going into books knowing too much. But I've heard it's good, and I've heard it's long, and I've heard they get better. I think I've heard that the Live Ship Traders trilogy is a better trilogy, but you should start with the Farseer trilogy. This is probably lowest on my priorities of series, but I think it's just in my sphere. Basically, it's in my edge of thinking like I would like to get to this series this year. If not, it's not a big deal. There's always next year. Number 7 is The Green Bone Saga by Fonda Lee. I am 100 pages into Jade City at the moment because I'm a and I can't finish books. I started it in December, but I'm going to finish it in January. But anyway, The Green Bone Saga is Jade City, Jade War, and this year is the finale is coming out, which is Jade Legacy. Now, this surprised me a little bit for what it's about. I assumed it would be like full fantasy world, but it's a bit more urban than I thought it would be. There's cars, there's electronics, like there's lights and stuff, like fully integrated light, heat, plumbing, that kind of thing. But it's based on like 1920s gangs, I think. And jade is something that can be traded, but it can only be used by certain clans in a powerful way, as in it can increase your speed, it can increase your strength, things like that. And the more jade you wear, the more powerful you are, basically. But in this, there's like gangs, crime syndicates, there's a lot of politics going on. I think it's mainly political. I think that's the main like driving plot line of it, which I do really enjoy. I really enjoy politics in fantasy books, so it should be right up my street. And I'm hoping to finish it this year because I'm hoping to get to Jade War, and then hopefully then Jade Legacy will become a most anticipated for this year. Now, last but not least, we have number 8, and that is A Chorus of Dragons. I have heard so much about this series from Katie again, from Brightness Katie Breeds. We have very similar taste. If you like me, you should like her, so go check her out again in the description. A Chorus of Dragons series is about a guy called Kirin, and it's kind of an inverse trope of the Chosen One. So instead of being chosen to save the world, he is destined to destroy it. And this is an adult fantasy with a queer polyamorous relationship, which I think comes up later on because I want to say I'm about 60% into the book right now. And I feel like it is a very slow burn. I don't know who the relationship's going to be with. I have an inkling of a guy, like who the guy is going to be, because I think it's MMF, which I love. But I have an inkling who the guy is going to be, or who I want the guy to be anyway. I have an inkling of who I want the guy to be in the relationship. It's a little bit slow at the moment, but I think I'm enjoying it. That makes it sound like I don't know if I'm enjoying it. I am enjoying it. I'm interested to see what the end is like. Having read the first Mistborn book now, I'm a little bit more lenient, I think, with slow-paced books, because Mistborn is fairly slow-paced. It's not like slow. I think apparently Stormlight Archive is even slower because of how good the endings are, or the ending was, of the first Mistborn book. I forgave the whole thing and I 5-starred it. I was like, oh, it's like 3 to 4 star, and then by the last like chunk, I was like, oh my god, 5-star, give it to me. I'm hoping by the end of the first book, which is The Ruin of Kings, that it will end up a 5-star. It's currently sitting like where I'm at. I like to like try and guess what I'm gonna rate it when I'm like halfway through. It's currently at like a 4. Even though not much has happened, I'm interested enough in the characters, and I can see where the arcs are going enough to know that I like it. There are dragons, there are demons, there are gods and goddesses, there's betrayal, there's intrigue, there's politics. It's like all that I want mashed into one, and I can't wait for the queer polyamorous relationship. I'm excited. I'm listening to the audiobook of this, and I'd also recommend that highly. I quite like the narrators. There's 3 different narrators. There are footnotes, which I did not know going into it, but because the footnotes are narrated by a different guy, it's very, very easy to differentiate between the story and the footnotes. And I quite like the footnotes. And they're written by a character in the story as well, and he tells you like almost straight away who he is, but it's like still quite interesting to see. That's it from me, everyone. That was my 2021 series I want to get to. Let me know in the comments below if you have read any of these, if you are also interested in any of these. Do you think I shouldn't read any of these. Did you not like any? Remember to give a like and comment if you can, and subscribe. I am going to be uploading at least once a week, every week this year, hopefully, apart from maybe exams in June/May, so forgive me for that. But I'm going to try and be more consistent with videos this year, considering I now have like an idea of my work-life balance when it comes to uni. Hopefully I will see you in another video. Bye!